Jesus Christ, my King, though eternal ages through the ages reign.
I lost my voice on that one. Okay, let's go ahead and pray. Brother Jerry, would you lead us in prayer this morning?
Good morning, Heavenly Father. We thank you for being with us today. Thank you for the Sabbath that you've given us. Thank you for all the brethren that we have to come and associate with. We appreciate this very much. We like worshiping on your Sabbath. We like worshiping every day. But we know you set this aside especially for us. Ask you to be with others that may be on their way, bringing them safely. And I ask you to be with us as we study, that you would send your Holy Spirit to indwell our hearts and our minds, that we may all gain something from the lesson and from our Bible studies. This we pray in Jesus' name. Amen.
Before we go any further, let's go ahead and recite the Ten Commandments. It's Exodus chapter 20, starting with verse number 3. All together, please. Thou shalt have no other gods before me. Thou shalt not make unto thee any graven image or any likeness of anything that is in heaven above, or that is in the earth beneath, or there is no water under the earth. Thou shalt not bow thyself to them, nor serve them. For I am the Lord thy God, a jealous God, visiting the iniquities of the fathers upon the children unto the third and fourth generation of them that hate me, and showing mercy unto thousands of them that love me and keep my commandments. Thou shalt not take the name of the Lord God in vain, for the Lord will not hold him guiltless to take his name in vain. Remember the Sabbath day to keep it holy. 6 days shall thou labor and do all the work, but the seventh day is the Sabbath of the Lord thy God. In it thou shalt do any work, thou, nor thy son, nor thy daughter, thy manservant, nor thy maidservant, nor thy cattle, nor the stranger within thy gates. For in 6 days the Lord made heaven and earth, the sea and all that midst, and rest the seventh day. Wherefore the Lord blessed the Sabbath day and hallowed it. Honor the father and mother, the days which belong upon the land which the Lord thy God giveth thee. Thou shalt not kill, thou shalt not commit adultery, thou shalt not steal, thou shalt not bear false witness against thy neighbor, thou shalt not cover thy neighbor's house, thou shalt not cover thy neighbor's wife, nor his manservant, nor his maidservant, nor his ox, nor his ass, anything that is thy neighbor's. Amen. Let's divide our classes, and we'll have the Sabbath lesson will be given by Brother Tim Buechner from San Antonio, Texas.
Morning, brothers and sisters. I'm Brother Tim Buechner from San Antonio, Texas. Here for the Sabbath school lesson today. As we continue our study regarding numbers in the Bible, October 22nd, 2022, we are going to be studying the number 4. Number 4, just remind those online, you're invited to participate by entering your comments on the YouTube comment box. Please associate the question number that your comment is linked to. Or if you don't have an account and can't do that, you can text your comments to 210-622-3191, 210-622-3191. Whether it's online or text, please, again, associate the question number with your comment. The number 4, from what I can tell, the number 4 is in the scriptures about 448 times. About 448 times, which is just a little less than the number we studied last week, which was 3. 3 was in there about 511 times. Which was less than 2. 2 was in there 713 times, which is less than 1. Is in there. Difficult exactly to tell because when you do an electronic Bible search for ONE, not only do you get the number 1 back, but you also get words like done, and stone, and money, and honey, and gone, and alone, and bone, and atonement. So you get all these additional things. So from what I can tell, probably about 1,800 times the word 1 is in there. So where the numbers are starting to, the number of times the numbers are in the scriptures are kind of decreasing as we go along here. We're on the number 4 this week. Genesis chapter 2.
Jim, I'd like to make a correction on that chapter, Genesis chapter 2. I think it's supposed to have been Genesis chapter 1, 14 through 18.
Genesis 1, 14 to 18. Okay. Genesis chapter 1, 14 to 18. Makes sense with the scripture reading too. Okay. Genesis 1, 14 to 18. And then the golden text, Genesis 1, 14.
I think that was supposed to be 2:14, right?
(2:14)?
Yes. But it doesn't go with one. Well, it doesn't. Yeah. Good. Well, it does. Yeah, I was thinking it was 2:14.
Did Brother Bud send out an email on that?
Sorry?
Did Brother Bud send an email out? I don't remember.
No, he didn't, but it just doesn't go with the Genesis scripture reading, and that doesn't go with the text either. It's more like 2:14.
I think 2:14. We'll cover it.
Okay.
We'll cover it. But a 1:14 or 2:14.
Anyway.
Yeah. Okay. All right, so we'll cover Genesis chapter 1, verses 14. We'll include 14, 15 with the verses that are already there. And then, through 19. And then let's go ahead with the scripture reading. Go ahead and do Genesis 2, 1 to 15. And then we'll cover chapter 1 in question 1. Yeah, so let's go ahead and do Genesis 2, 1 to 15 now, and then we'll do the Genesis 1, 14 to 19 in question 1. Because I think Brother Bud was driving to a point here in chapter 2 that ended with the, chapter 2, I think he's driving to a point. All right, someone wants to read that? Genesis 2, 1 to 15?
Sanctified it because that in it he had rested from all his work, which God created him. These are the generations of the heavens and on the earth, when they were created in the day that the Lord God made the earth and the heaven. And every plant of the field before it was in the earth, and every bird of the field before it was. For the Lord God had not caused it to rain upon the earth, and there was not a man to till the ground. But there went up a mist from heaven, and the waters of the whole face of the ground. And the Lord God formed man of dust of the ground, and breathed into his nostrils the breath of life, and man became a living soul. And the Lord God planted a garden of his spirit in Eden, and there he put the man whom he had formed. And out of the ground made the Lord God to grow every tree that is pleasant to the sight and God for a food, and good for food, for the tree of life also in the midst of the garden, and the tree of knowledge and good and evil. And the river went off out of Eden to water the garden, and from thence it was parted and came into forehead. The name of the first is Bethesda, and that is it which compasses it. Whole land of Havilah, there where there is gold, and the gold of that land is good. There is Havilah and the onyx stone, and the name of the second river is Gihon. The same is it that compasses the whole land of Ethiopia. And the name of the third river is Hiddekel, that is it which flows toward the east and Assyria. And the fourth river is Euphrates. And the Lord God took the man and put him into the garden for Eden to rest it and to keep it. And so,
That's good? And then Genesis 1:14, we'll pick that up. We'll pick that up with question 1. So chapter 2 of Genesis is basically the end of creation. Chapter 1 is days 1 through 6. Chapter 2 starts with the 7th day, as everything had been finished, everything had been completed, and God resting on His work, from His work, and God blessing, in verse 3, the 7th day, and sanctifying it, meaning to set it apart, make it different, unique, special. And it's unique, it's special, it's different, and it's blessed because He rested. That's the day He rested from all His work. And then verse 4, we start to get into, where it says, "These are the generations of the heavens and of the earth when they were created in the day that the Lord God made the earth and the heavens." And he starts to kind of go through and recap a little bit, with a little bit more detail, some of what had already been created, what had already had happened. Talking about, in verse 5, the plant of the field and how there was just dew, that there wasn't rain, and then the creation of man, a little bit more detail, how that happened in verses 7, and then a little bit more detail about where man lived when he was created. And that place was called what? Eden. And that's where he put the man who he had formed. I think it's interesting, verse 5 I think is interesting, especially the last part of it, where he talks about every plant of the field before it was in the earth, and every herb of the field before it grew. For the Lord God had not caused it to rain upon the earth, and there was not a man to till the ground. There was not a man to till the ground. Because if we go back and look at when creation happened, right, we saw, day 1, day 2, day 3, day 4, and then what day was it that man was made on? The 6th day. So all these other things had been created already. Everything was made, but there wasn't a man to till the ground. How much tilling of ground was there going on in the Garden of Eden?
I was thinking the same thing. I said, man, that's a lot of land he's got to till, but I guess he was just talking about where he put man at the garden.
I think God just didn't let the grass grow, so it just stayed at an even level.
Okay.
I kind of see it that he put them at a little tilling in the ground to keep up with it, maintenance and just checking on the trees and doing little things around. So he put the man in there and he started caring for God's creation, the trees, the grass, things like that. That's all he needed to do, just take care of it.
Yeah, verse 15
Yeah,
said,
I think that everything in the Garden of Eden was in such good shape. It didn't need cultivating, it didn't need pruning, it didn't need anything, as long as they were obedient to the Lord. Because if you skip to chapter 3:23, it says, "Therefore the Lord God sent him forth from the Garden of Eden to till the ground."
right.
So, a change, a whole change come about with their sin there.
Right, and that's why I thought that was interesting how back in chapter 2, that last part where he said, "And there was not a man to till the ground," because when God gets when man is in the garden, in verse 15 it says, "The Lord God took the man and put him in the Garden of Eden to dress it and keep it." To dress it and keep it. But it's not until after sin, after the fall of man, that we see this tilling required, this hard labor required. So I just thought that was a interesting verse there, the last part of that verse. But let's get to the point of the lesson, which is 4. What do you see regarding 4 in Genesis chapter 2?
Number 10, verse 10, and King 4:10.
Okay. So There was a river that went out of Eden to water the garden. So there was a river, and it was parted and became into 4 heads. 4 heads. So you had this main river that was divided into 4 tributaries, 4 separate streams, 4 separate rivers. Pison, Gihon, Hiddekel, and Euphrates. Where are those rivers? In the Middle East, yeah.
By Israel, right?
By Israel, close to Israel. Not necessarily in Israel. You know, to the east or north of Israel.
I looked on Google foreheads, river foreheads, and it shows it like Iraq, Syria, to Turkey, in that area.
Mm-hmm. Well, if we want to know where the rivers are, all we have to go is know where the Garden of Eden is.
Well, I just put in foreheads, river with foreheads, and that's what popped up.
Okay.
So that would be a good place to start.
Yeah. So we have 4 rivers.
Verse 14.
Verse 14.
He named the first, the second, and the third, and also the 4th river. Euphrates. That one still exists today.
Yeah. I saw something that said that Hiddekel or Hiddekel, or however you say that, could be the Tigris River. But I don't think that's definitive.
That's what I was thinking. That was so long ago, like, man, could have renamed those rivers.
Oh, yeah.
The names have changed, or called a different river by that name.
Yeah. I saw one guy with a commentary about it. It sounds easy to, clearly define a river. He said, but if you think about how they're developed, he's like, it can be confusing. He said, so for example, and he used the Ohio River as an example. So the Ohio River is created out of 2 rivers, which the Allegheny and the Monongahela or something like that. And then it actually goes into the Mississippi. So where the Mississippi River pours out into the Gulf of Mexico, can you call it the Ohio River? Can you call the Allegheny and the Monongahela who go into who are used to form the Ohio? Because if you start at where it ends and track it all the way back, it's like you end up, in one of a couple places. And of course, there's smaller streams and all that kind of stuff. And so it can get confusing on tracking the names of things. And then to Jeff's point, people rename things all the time. Old Highway 90 is always a debate over here, right? See all those signs. Keep the name. Don't change the name.
The two of the rivers that we usually hear of these 4 rivers is the Tigris and the Euphrates River.
Say it again, Brother Marlon.
The Tigris River
Yep.
and the Euphrates River are the well-known that we hear today
Yep.
in the Middle East. I don't know the names of the other 2, if they have been changed to something else, but I know that the Tigris is one and the Euphrates is one.
Yeah, on the map here it says Euphrates, Tigris, Karasu, Karasu, and then Murat, Murat.
Love those name changes. So we have 4 rivers. Let's go to question 1. But let's include in question 1, let's start with verse 14. 14 to 19.
And God said, let there be lights in the firmament of the heavens to divide the day from the night, and let them be for signs and for seasons and for days and years, and let them be for lights in the firmament of the heaven to give light upon the earth. And it was so. And God made 2 great lights, the greater light to rule the day, and the lesser light to rule the night. He made the stars also, and God set them in the firmament of the heaven to give light upon the earth, and to rule over the day and over the night, and divide the light from the darkness. And God saw that it was good. And the evening and the morning were the 4th day. So God made the sun and the moon.
To tell them day and night.
Say the difference between day and night.
And the stars.
To track the years and months.
Mm-hmm.
But the question says, why did God make the 2 great lights? To divide the day from the night.
So before that, what was the source of light?
Well, it's interesting because if you go back to verse 3, that's the first thing He created, right?
Maybe there was just continuous light.
Was it like a heavenly light?
I take it that that's the Father and the Son in verse 3. They were the light. Because when we go into Revelation, the last chapter, going into eternity, it says there will be no sun or moon there, but the Father and the Son will be the light thereof. So I think they are the light in verse 3 before He created the sun and the moon.
But I got a question. What would be the purpose of Him saying then, let there be light?
Because it stays there in terms, because it stays there was darkness, and God.
I know, but to Brother Jerry's point, he says that, there was a light.
Well, that's what I'm going to tell you.
Actually, I'm thinking that when it says, let there be light there, that might be the time of the creation of Jesus. Because Revelation tells us that God created Jesus and He's the light of the world. So I'm wondering if that's possibly even the time that He created Jesus, see at the very beginning, and then He would be the light of the world going forward. And He helped the Father in all creation. No creation was done without Jesus. That's just my passive thought.
And it also states there that on verse 3, God said, let there be light, and there was light. And then the last part, of course, says God divided the light from the darkness. So this is something that God was not willing that darkness would conquer. If not, light would be able to conquer darkness, because darkness resembles evil. So that's why God called the day, the light day, and the darkness He called it night. So we see here how He illuminated, as Brother Jerry said it, through our Lord Jesus Christ, so this darkness wouldn't be a sort of like a vengeance to take over God's creation.
It's like the darkness we were talking about last week. I think it was last week. We were talking about that absolute darkness that came on Egypt. It's like you can't function in that absolute darkness. The interesting thing too is verse 5. God called the light day, and the darkness He called night, right? So we've got the creation of light, we've got day and night, but then down here on the 4th day, we've got additional lights in the firmament of the heaven to divide the day from the night. So it's like He's building on, and putting more structure in place, more infrastructure, if you will. Now there's more stars, lights in the heaven, greater light. Why do we need night? Why do we need night? Why do we need dark?
Well, that's
What's that, Jimmy?
to sleep, so that way you can get the full rest.
Okay.
Instead of which you have work during the day, so you need the rest for night.
Okay.
And like it says in verse 14, we also need lights at nighttime for signs, for seasons.
Okay.
The stars tell us direction.
Yeah. For days, for
That is,
years.
Yeah, that's something that a lot of people don't realize that these are used for the 4 seasons of the whole year. And the light and the stars and the 2 greater lights are able to be utilized in where you can make things grow with the sun in the seasons, and also the night where the moons are able to use to know. For example, people use the moon to go fishing, or they say that that's the best time to go fishing, and that's the best time to plant your crops and other things. So all these stars and sun and moon is helpful for our products that we eat at the stores.
Right.
And I saw like this one National Geographic channel, where like the elephants use the moon like as light, like in Africa, to defend themselves against predators. And then whenever like it's a new moon, then they're just blowing their horns but they know the directions that the predators are coming from.
Interesting.
I see as the details in the light. So he did separate light and darkness, but you can tell there's a big difference there, because God said there could be lights, and the other verse said that there'd be light. So then you have different details in
Right.
it. So even if you walk in a room, you use a flashlight, you still can't see everything, right? But I mean, if you have lights lit up in different parts of the room, then you're able to see it differently. So just like at night, you have one light to help govern, to help, navigate and look and see, but you can see that when he says let there be lights, it's part of the details that he's adding into the night. Even though it's darkness, you can't really see very well anyway. So then he has, let there be lights to help govern, and had set time for the seasons and for days and years. So there's a purpose for these individual details that he's adding into the general aspect that he created earlier. That makes sense.
That's an interesting thought, because if it's dark, you can take your flashlight, but you can still only see a partial. Like you say, when it's total light, then you see all the details.
Yeah, I had went to the countryside, with my uncle and with my dad, and then I had turned on the flashlight, to see the stars, and then I could see perfectly because all the stars were shining brightly, and then I was like, oh, we don't need the flashlight because we can see everything with the stars. A lot better than how you can see with the flashlight.
Right.
And again, we see verse 18 of what Marlena was saying, to rule over the day and over the night, and to divide the light from the darkness. Thank God saw that it was good.
Right.
It serves a good purpose for the daytime, and it serves a good purpose for the nighttime.
Right.
The greater light and the lesser light.
Right. The creation itself is this. It's this system of systems, and they're all interrelated and they're all intertwined. Like on the third day, right, where he created grass and fruit trees and all this other stuff, right? It's dependent on what? What do you have to have for those to grow? You have to have sun, right? You have to have light. You have to have, water. You have to have moisture of some sort, right? And so all these different components, all put together, make the total package.
And that shows you that God is a God of order.
Mhm.
He's a God of understanding
Yeah,
and wisdom, and he's not of chaos or disorder. He didn't make man first
right.
without
A place.
having a place for them to be.
Right. Yeah. If
Even though it was just a few days, it's not like he went with a chaotic plan. He went with a thoughtful plan.
right.
And for that point, it does make sense that Jesus would be mentioned before all that, being that he is the God of order. And if Jesus helped create everything,
Right.
then he obviously should be mentioned.
I mean, day to God is like 1,000 years for us. So it's like if he actually put 3,000 years in there to making like a place for us to know.
Yeah, it's and if you think about it just at the simplistic basis, if one of these is taken out, can man live? Right?
It's an ecosystem. Like if you take out one bug from the ecosystem, then the ecosystem wouldn't be able to function.
Right. Yep. You take the light away, can man live? The sun's gone, can we survive? No. If the earth is gone, if the earth just right now just disappeared, the earth itself, what would happen to us?
We all disappeared.
Or if it's so opposite
Yeah, it
access.
was a flood off with no gravity.
How long would we live?
Seconds.
And some people don't even think about it, the sun or the moon, ever. They think it's normal. But God is the one that has it under control, and it's always in the same position as well as the moon. They don't come forward or they don't go backwards. They just there, and people don't realize how amazing that is that God has placed these two lives, and since said they have an order, God gave them an order. That's your authority and that's your position. That's what you serve, and as well as the room.
All right.
And it's just amazing that a lot of people don't even realize how that creation was created.
All right. And the interrelationships of them all. If the moon wasn't there,
Then the wolves would be able to howl.
wolves wouldn't be able to howl. Is that what you said? Yeah.
Yeah.
And we'd have some different issues with our seas and oceans, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so why did God make the two great lights? The greater light to rule the day and the lesser light to rule the night. All right, number 2.
How long was Israel to be a stranger in Egypt? Genesis 15:13. And he said unto Abram, know of a surety that thy seed shall be a stranger in a land that is not theirs, and shall serve them, and they shall afflict them 400 years.
The question says, how long was Israel to be a stranger?
Well, it says that his seed is going to be a stranger in the land for 400 years.
Whose seed?
Abram.
Okay. Did Israel exist this time?
Prophecy of something going to happen in the future.
So we have Abraham, and we have Isaac, and we have Jacob.
It says in my Bible it took 300 years from that, to start the 400 years of the Christian. Yeah, it was definitely prophecy.
So it's a future prophecy that Israel was going to be, yeah. Do you think?
700 years altogether?
Do you think Abraham may have passed this insight on to Isaac?
Sure.
Yeah, it made it in the Bible.
So Isaac was aware that somebody was going to be in bondage for 400 years? And do you think Isaac maybe passed it on to Jacob?
I imagine they were all very good communicators on what was happening.
And taking pigeons across the nations.
What's that?
Like if they were taking messenger pigeons across the nations.
Messenger pigeons? Yeah.
I think that'll also be like a message of hope when they are in that bondage. There will be an end point,
Right.
but you're gonna have to go through this for a while. Don't forget our ways,
Yeah. All right, question 3.
But in the fourth generation they shall come hither again, for the iniquity of the Amorites is not yet full. So their suffering isn't yet full. That's what I think.
Okay. So they're going to go into affliction. They're going to go into bondage and serve others for 400 years. But they'll return again, right? They'll come back again. They'll return to the promised land again.
So do you think that this means a generation is 100 years? Because they were going in there for 400 years, and then 16 says in 4 generations. So I almost wonder, does that mean a generation, at least in that day and time,
Right.
was considered to be 100 years?
Okay.
I thought a generation was 40 years.
That's in our limited day and age, right? That's in our not living as long time. Yeah.
That's true. It takes 40 years for a trend to come back around.
Yeah.
No,
Right.
According to the internet, so the generation is 20 to 30 years.
That went wrong.
Gen
Well, and that's a good point. I was reading where the American Indian, before medicine and before anything modern came to them, their life expectancy was 29 years. So the generation varies according to the day and time that you're in.
Even today, life expectancy is very different country to country. Significant differences.
But I would think that it differs like on the belief that you have, right? Because if you're in God's favor, then you have more time. That's what I would think.
Yeah, definitely a link to obedience for sure.
Because like Moses, he lived to like 1,000 because he was in God's favor.
Moses, I'm not quite sure how long Moses. I think his age is documented.
Mm-hmm.
I don't remember how old he was, but
No, like I just said 1,000 because my dad had told me. Like,
Yeah. but a long time.
Mhm.
Okay. Okay, so 400 years they'll be in captivity, and 4 generations they'll return. Number 4.
for the Son. And thou shalt not make unto thee any graven image, or any likeness of anything that is in heaven above, or that is in the earth beneath, or that is in the water under the earth. Thou shalt not bow down thyself to them, nor serve them, for I, the Lord thy God, am a jealous God, visiting the iniquity of the fathers upon the children unto the third and fourth generation of them that hate me. 4:7. For keeping mercy for thousands, forgiving iniquity and transgression and sin, and that will by no means clear the guilty, visiting the iniquity of the fathers upon the children and upon the children's children, unto the third and to the fourth generation. Mercy of thousands, forgiving iniquity and transgression and sin. There will be no means clear the guilty.
How long is the iniquity of fathers visited upon their children?
Until the fourth generation.
What does visit mean? Visiting the iniquity of the fathers upon the children of the third and fourth generation.
I guess to show your face to someone, right? Like to show your face again to somebody.
The Hebrew word means to visit with friendly or hostile intent. By analogy, to oversee, to muster, to charge, to care for, to miss, to deposit, to appoint, to avenge, to bestow, to charge, to commit, to count, to be empty, to enjoin, to do judgment. There's a bunch of definitions here, a bunch of words.
I have punishing.
Punishing? Okay. So, 4 generations. Take me, my parents, my grandparents, my great-grandparents. So we're saying here that what my great-grandparents did impacts me?
I would say so.
Who are your great-grandparents?
If they immigrated from across the ocean and they came over here, but that impacted you right now.
Who are your great-grandparents, Miriam?
I don't know.
Yeah, what are their names?
I don't know the names.
What did they do?
I don't know what they did,
think
but I know they lived here.
Where they live where?
Here in San Antonio, here in this Texas, South Texas region.
What were their names again?
I don't know what their names are.
Well, how do they have an impact on you?
By their actions.
What did they do?
They taught their kid how to live, and their kid taught their kid how to live. And it comes all the way down.
Well, the thing about it is that this chain of each generation can be broken anywhere in that. If you repent, you turn back to God, you start keeping the commandments of God, faith in Jesus, that chain can be broken anywhere in that lineage. If nobody steps up to break it and change it, then it will go on for the 4 generations.
I can see that. My parents coming here to the church and their parents not being here in the
Yeah.
church, and how it affected me and my kids.
That too.
I think it's like a default mode, right? That you just do kind of what you've been taught, how your parents have lived, and when you were growing up with them and everything, you learned that way, and they learned that way from their parents, and their parents learned that way from their parents, and whether it's a good lifestyle or a bad lifestyle or whatever it is, that's just the default mode. And unless we're aware of that, and unless we make conscious decisions to change things for the better, or sometimes change things for the worse, it's just the default mode.
We use the word environment today. To see a characteristic in someone, we say, well, that's the environment they were raised in. And that's what this is. If each generation carries on the same environment, then they're going to have the same habits and same faults and everything. But like Marlene or Miriam says, you come to the Church of God, you learn different, and you start following it, then you break that chain.
Miriam, were you just waving at me a little bit ago, or did you have?
No, Sister Alice has a comment she made. She says some of the ways of living and habits may have been carried forward into each of the generations.
Yeah.
Because sin could be taught, and then holiness, it could be taught as well, to like a childlike mind that is really that really looks up to the older. Yeah?
Definitely. Yeah, so definitely the lifestyle, the way of living, the way of life, the attitudes, all those things are definitely automatically ingrained in us by our parents, and it was ingrained in our parents by our grandparents, and it was ingrained in them by the great-grandparents. But it's just interesting how when I asked Miriam, who her great-grandparents are, she don't know who they is.
I guess because I never educated them.
I know who my grandparents are, but not my great-grandparents.
It's time to break the second one. Yeah. But I saw what she said as a grandparent. I go back to my grandparents. I know who they are. And I know where they came from, and their parents came from, and so on. So we did a research on that. They're immigrants from Spain. They came on the boat with Columbus. But they didn't land in America. They were in those
Mexico.
colonies. They went to Mexico. That's what they came.
Where Cuba is
From
at.
Spain to Mexico. And then from there, they migrated here, a small town south of, actually north from the Rio Grande. And that's where my grandparents come from. They come from Panama, Maria, Pana Maria, close to the Rio Grande. They came to live in San Antonio. But I noticed in my mother, who set the things in motion, and that's what brought me to the church, because she was trying to give us something better, to change that cycle because of what was brought over. And they were all embedded in Catholic, and none of them were, I think, church-going people. And it just kept going until they came to my mother. She raised us going to church. Went to Catholic, and she didn't like that, so she got out and went to Baptist. So we've always grew up with Baptist. So she broke that chain, starting there. That's where the whole thing initiated it. And I'm the only one in the whole family that also broke that chain and came into the Church of God. Because everybody else remains Catholic or pretend to be Baptist.
Because God brought you to the church.
And pretend to be Baptist, and that's how she represents herself. And I got some that don't care. God does not exist to them. but through me, it changed world.
No, we see like probably almost everybody in this room that grandparents make an impact on our lives. Like in the way, I mean, like if you had a grandparent that studied their Bible or something, like grandparents just make impacts, you know, if they're, you know, if they're watching the kids. I know those grandparents over there do a lot for their kids, and you know, I know your grandparents meant a lot to you, Tim, and, you know, grandparents can make huge impacts that impact your way of living. Not just you personally or your heart, but really the way you conduct yourself.
I would think like since they had like already lived most of their life, then you take some of like their lessons into your own way of thinking.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, let's go to question 5.
What 4 things are never satisfied? Proverbs 30:15-16. The horse leech hath 2 daughters, crying, Give, give. There are 3 things that are never satisfied. Yea, 4 things say not. It is enough. The grave and the barren womb, the earth that is not filled with water, and the fire that saith not, It is enough. So 4 things are the grave, the barren womb, the dry earth that wants water, and the fire that say not. What's that one? Fire.
Strife. I think that would be strife, like something that like you're just adding fuel to the fire, you know? That's all I think, because fire, like you could do anything and you could light a fire like underneath someone, you know?
What's a horse leech?
That.
A leech?
A real leech.
That's a leech.
Leech has 2 daughters crying, Give, give. Ticks are kind of like that too, huh, Cindy?
Yeah, ticks are the
Give,
same way.
give.
They're never satisfied. They just keep going until it grows into this humongous thing. Still not satisfied.
Take it off now.
For leeches, I found out that it was leeches that sometimes when a horse goes and drinks water in a swamp or somewhere that is not proper, those leeches, especially the small ones, they attach either to your nose or your throat, and then they continue to suck blood, and that's why it says gimme, gimme, because they're never satisfied. They continue to suck and suck and suck until they burst, you know, because of all the blood they're sucking. And then it says the grave, and that's another one that's never satisfied. It's always open for
Business.
people that are passed away. And the barren woman, it's never satisfied. That she go through whatever she needs to go through to have a child. And the earth is not filled with water. Sometimes the water, maybe he was thinking about the water in the Middle East. It rains, but the land soaks it up real fast that it needs water again. And something that Jimmy said here on the last one, the fire that said not, it is not, it is enough. It's always consuming more than it spreads out, more than it gains, and it's more fire. So that's what I learned about this verses. But to what extent he is saying this, I just don't know the meaning behind that, except that people are not satisfied with just enough. They always want more and more.
Yeah. Yeah, it says it's talking about 4 things that are never satisfied, 4 things that never say it is enough. Right? The grave never says it's full. What's that?
I think it's just a wise thing, like, he's just a wise guy, and he's, like, saying wise things, and I think he's, like, putting these 4 things together as just a clever thing, you know, there's 4 things that never get enough.
Right.
And those 4 things, I mean, like, you can really, like, you can visualize all 4
Yeah.
of those things, you know, how, you know, each one of those are, it's really, you're like, yeah, that's true.
Right.
Those are 4 things that can never get enough of something.
Yeah, the ground doesn't say, stop, 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 no more death, I can't take any more people, right? It just keeps
Coming.
it just keeps, you know, keeps taking it, right? And, you know, the earth that is not filled with water, that one I see 2 ways. One, I can see the desert example, but I also see, going back to our conversation earlier about the ecosystem, right, is that, yes, it rains hard in places and it floods, but then what happens? It goes away, right? But the earth itself, I mean, that self-contained ecosystem, I mean, you would think as much as it rains and then it dries up, it rains, but it never is like full,
around, yeah.
right? I mean, it comes back again,
Like I said, Antonio, it rains and all of a sudden all the water's going.
right? And a fire, I mean, a fire, if it has fuel and oxygen, it just doesn't say to itself, that's enough, right? As long as there's fuel and air, I mean, a fire just keeps going. A fire just keeps burning. Forest fire, yeah. It just doesn't say, okay, I've burned 1,000 acres. Stop. Right? If there's fuel and air, it's just going to keep. It can't be stopped. It doesn't say, okay, I've had enough. Okay, 4 things that are never satisfied. Number 6.
The prophet Gur says there are 4 things too wonderful for him. Proverbs 30:18-19. There be 3 things which are too wonderful for me, yea, 4 which I know not. The way of an eagle in the air, the way of a serpent upon a rock, the way of a ship in the midst of the sea, and the way of a man with a maid.
Too wonderful. What does that mean?
Too wonderful for your own understanding. Right?
Things that he just is like, he just marvels at, right? He's just like
in awe.
Yeah, he's in awe of it. He's like, wow, that eagle that's just, it's not flapping its wings, but it's just flying, right? It's just up there. He's like, that's amazing how that works.
Marlena and I were watching a live video. Someone put a GoPro on an eagle, and it's just his head, and you can see him lift up his head, go down, and it looks, it's pretty cool.
Mm-hmm.
It's interesting how you hear him slow down, and then as he's going, like getting up on, I guess, higher, you hear the air to the take off. And then Miriam made a comment, you can see him looking, he's turning his head, he's looking for the ooh, like he's searching, and it's just like, we were mesmerized, watching him like fly.
Yeah.
I don't know, for what, 5-10 minutes?
It was a while, yeah.
It was like just really cool watching him.
Was it on a golden eagle? Is that what it was on?
A bald eagle.
A bald eagle?
There's one that was also put on the fastest bird, like
The peregrine falcon?
Yeah.
where he was up in Dubai, and he was way up high. People were like tinier than ants on the ground, right? And the trainer flags him down, and you can see him making circles too in the air. He's looking for him, and he sees him. And then once he spots him, you can see his wings come in, and he's going super fast on the way down. And it's just mesmerizing just to
Right.
watch it. I would watch it again if I saw it.
That's the new drones.
Yeah, and where they put the GoPro on,
GoPros on there.
It's really cool.
I saw the bald eagle one, that was fascinating to see.
You know, bald eagle, they could fly above the storms. But that's what I like about them, that they could know where danger is and then just be, oh, okay, and then they just go.
Adjust for it, yeah. So that's good. We're Eagles, Falcons are two wonderful for us. What about the serpent upon a rock?
Just stalks and waits for its prey. Right.
What's the serpent? Why does he think that's? Do you think that's wonderful? Too wonderful?
I think it is. I
I
mean,
mean,
he's got no
always-
legs and yet he can move around the ground. That's pretty crazy.
How did he get on the mountain?
Well, one time I was walking through the woods and I saw it was like, there's a lot of trees. And then there's like a beam of light through the trees, right on a rock. And he was just all coiled up right on this rock, just like sunbathing. It looked pretty cool. He was just there resting on the rock. Big snake too, but
He was all curled up.
he was all coiled up, perfectly coiled on the rock, getting sun. So that was pretty wonderful.
Could also be that he was amazed of the design of the snakes, its colors, the way maybe he is not able to really see it, but he saw it on a rock. How they blend with the rock. You know.
Right. Yep.
I always think it's wonderful how, like, animals know things, because we don't really classify them as very smart or, like, very wise to think, like, the serpent says, I'm cold, so if I go wrap myself around a rock, you know, because I'm cold-blooded, this can fix my problem.
Right.
You know, it's just the way of a serpent. So I think like that's the part that's the wonderful part is the way of the serpent.
Yeah. Yeah.
The way of the sheep, or the way of the instinct
Right.
that God's given animals, that you can't explain, you know, how birds feed their babies, or
Yeah.
like how they teach penguins, they'll teach their babies how to swim, or seals keep their, you know, it's like how they know how to do things
Yeah.
without being taught or told.
Mm-hmm.
Because like the serpent didn't have a mom to say, I mean, like they all went their way,
Yeah.
and then they're like, well, who taught them all these things? Who taught the bird how to do this? Who taught? So the way of the animal, I think it says.
Yeah.
The way of the animal is pretty wonderful.
The way of the hummingbird for me is too wonderful. How many times have you heard me talk about hummingbirds, right? Hummingbirds that are outside.
Hummingbirds.
Yeah, and last week,
You saw one.
huh?
You saw one.
No. Last week they left.
They left, because I have a.
Every October, they're just gone. I mean, literally, the week before last, they're out there. I was in the backyard, and I heard something in the tree. Like there was a hummingbird there, and then last week it was like gone, and I will not see them again until the spring. I mean, they're just, and it's like, how in the world do they? How do they decide collectively? It's time. Let's go. Right? It's too wonderful for me.
Seasons.
It's the bird is fascinating too, how fast his heart beats. But it's the only bird that I heard that can reverse
Oh, yeah.
and go forward, side. I mean, it's just fascinating. He's flying in there and then he flies out. It's just like interesting. to
What
see.
about this way of a ship in the midst of the sea? What is that about?
Oh, that the sailor could guide like its way through like the void of the sea, and then with the instructions of the stars, like it could still find its way to shore. And that's what I would find like in awe of a ship, because like one day like I would like to travel like in the sea and then just navigate with the stars.
Right.
Right.
If you haven't had the opportunity, and if you have the ability to, go somehow, someplace, somewhere where you're in the middle of the sea, whether it's a cruise ship or whatever, but you can't describe it. I mean, it's like everywhere you look, it looks exactly, absolutely the same. It's amazing.
The way of, as Cindy was saying, the way of the ship, I mean, it's just amazing how that big old ship or those destroyers or, I mean, those ones that where you land the airplanes, I forgot what they call
Aircraft
them.
carrier.
They are so huge, how do they stay afloat, you know? what I'm trying to say? And when we're going home sometimes, look, and I see these the 352 airplanes, they're not up there, they're above us, so close.
All right.
And they just go, like that. How does that happen?
Yeah.
Such a big old
Right.
airplane, so heavy. You would think that gravitational pull would just bring it down.
All right.
But they stay up there, you know, it's just an awe to me, as he's saying with this,
The way of the eagle.
All
Yeah,
right.
we could add to that list.
But I think those are all man-made though. This is all God-made.
Okay. The
These
way
are
of a
wonders
man.
that God created himself.
What's the last one?
The man with the maid.
The way of a man with a maid.
Let's keep it G-rated.
yeah, I got that, the way of a man with a version, that's what I have.
Okay.
That's all I gotta say.
That's all you got to say about that?
Next question.
Next question.
No, but I would just think that like a man lacks the innocence of
Okay.
like a maid. I mean, that's all. I have to say.
It's just this natural thing.
It's too wonderful.
Well, when there's really love there, it's wonderful, right? Because I mean, you devote yourselves to each other.
Miriam, I thought you said next question.
It's the
Well, Jeff continued, so I just.
it's the respect he gives to the certain maiden.
Mm.
But if you see two different women, one's whatever, house of repute or a brothel, whatever, you treat her different. But when you got a maiden who's pure, a virgin, there's a different way of treating her with respect and care and keeping your distance. The difference between those two women you got.
Making sure she stays innocent and pure.
All right. So 4 things that we're never satisfied. 4 things that are too wonderful. Number 7.
What does he write that is peace to earth? Proverbs 30, 21 through 23. For 3 things the earth is disappointed. Disappointed for 4 which cannot bear. For a servant when he reigneth, and a fool when he is filled with meat. For an odious woman when she is married, and a handmaid that is heir to her mistress.
So we're talking about 4 things that are disquieted. What's disquieted mean?
Loud.
Excited, agitated, perturbed.
Cannot bear.
4 things which it cannot bear. A servant when he reigns. What is that?
When he's loud, right? Or when he's complaining, I guess.
A servant when he reigns. What does reign mean?
When you have rule.
When you have rule, when you've been given authority.
Boss.
Oh.
Too loud, gives too many orders.
Okay? Okay? He gets excited, he gets agitated. He's like, go do this, you do that, you do that. I'm in charge now, right? And gets, all of a sudden, he's in charge, and so he's going to tell everybody what to do, and you better listen to him because he's got authority, and who are you to question me? And he starts doing the things that he used to complain about the master doing all the time, right? So a servant when he reigns, a fool when he is filled with meat.
When he overindulges, right?
Okay?
Well, when he doesn't think of others, I'm guessing.
You've heard me say before, no food. If you have no food, you have one problem. But if you have food, you got many problems, right? If you have a fool who's fed and content, what does it allow him to do?
Feel himself more, right?
Act a fool,
Oh.
right?
Play with
If he's just looking for food all the time, and he needs food to live, and that's what he occupies his time with, he don't have time to be a fool.
Mm-hmm.
But if he's full, if he's got enough, in his belly, then hey, it's time to act a fool. And that is, disquiets the earth, right? An odious woman when she is married. An odious, in Hebrew here, is this hateful woman. A hateful woman when she is married. What does that mean?
Another definition, it has extremely unpleasant and repulsive.
An extremely unpleasant and repulsive
She like
woman.
nitpicks like at everything or something.
Okay.
She's never happy. She's never happy.
Yeah, the sad
The woman is married and she's never happy. She's always in a hateful mood.
Okay. A handmaid that is heir to her mistress. Why is a handmaid that is an heir to her mistress something that disquiets the earth? Something that the earth can't bear.
Talk of the town, I guess.
Because how could a servant become an heir when they were meant to be a servant? That's all I think, because you're supposed to play your roles. But then when you force your role upon someone else, then you force everybody else to have to think about it and be like, what? Like to be puzzled about with the circumstance that which you put yourself in.
So if you think about, let's just think about like an old system where in the house there's multiple servants and there's different people, different jobs, the kitchen people and the cleaners and all this stuff. And then you have this one who's the handmaid to the mistress of the house. And she's the one who takes care of her. And she finds out that she's going to be the heir to everything. What's the dynamic that now has changed in the house with the servants?
Just like a servant that's ruling, she's going to be like, I'm calling the shots. If she's gone, I'm going to be ruling on things.
So you better do what I have. You better do what I want, Jeff. Because when she die,
I love it.
Or she could not be like caring for her mistress the way that she should because she's okay with her.
the faster she dies, the faster she's in charge.
I remember stories about like where slaves knew that they would be freed after their owners were dead.
Yeah.
That there was fear amongst the family of, that they might. They wanted to set them free, but they really didn't want them to know about it either.
Yeah.
What I see here is the disquiet about that is that everybody knows that the handmaid is going to be the heir, and everybody's talking out loud, and she's going to be over her mistress, and everybody knows about it, and not only maybe the household, but maybe outside the household as well.
Right.
And it's pretty noisy, about that.
Yep. All right, so we had 4 things that were never satisfied, 4 things too wonderful, 4 things that disquiet the earth. Number 8.
Number 8. What 4 things
little upon the earth, yet wise. Proverbs 30. There are 4 things which are little upon the earth, but they are exceeding wise. The ants are a people not strong, yet they prepare their meat in the summer. The cunies are but a feeble folk, yet make they their houses in rocks. The locusts have no king, yet they go forth, all of them by bands. The spider taketh hold with her hands, and it is king's palace. Well, you know the ant, very small, but very long. They work all summer long to eat your plants, eat your toes, and invade your yard or whatever, because now they're preparing and storing away from cold weather, and they go underground. Interesting.
But here's the thing with ants,
Yes.
though, is that they don't live long enough to
You know,
receive those spoils.
that's it. You got worker ants, they do that.
The workers last a little longer, but some of those ants, they don't live that long, and so they're working all their life and not getting to hang out during winter and eat.
What's a coney?
A rabbit or red rabbit.
Rock
I think in
badger.
this- Yeah, I think in this one it's different, isn't it? It's not a rabbit?
Rock badger.
That's the Hebrew word I had too, was rock badger.
Yeah, it's saying that makes their houses in the rocks. Rabbits don't make their houses in rocks.
Big birds on the ground.
Yeah, like I remember feeding like a bee to some ants, and then like they like quickly made like a fork for that bee. I was like, what? Like, how can you do that? So like I had found like another bee inside my house, and then my sister had killed it. I was like, why did you kill it? So like I just fed it to the ants, and then quickly they were trying to get the other bee like inside their hole. I was like, what? And then, like that's pretty cool.
Locusts have no king, yet go they forth, all of them by bands. What does that mean?
They all fly together. They all eat together. They're all together. They don't need a leader.
Well, you see them in the field and they'll all take off at the same time.
Yeah.
Like if in Africa where they were having the giant locusts where they were eating all the crops and stuff, they would eat, and then it wasn't like some would be like, okay, I'm full, I'm gonna move on. They would move on as these huge clouds of crazy
Yeah.
to go and eat somebody else's field.
They say they go forward all of them by bands. It means that they have different ranks, and they all have a way of moving forward.
On National Geographic, it says, a desert locust can be a swarm of 460 square miles in size and pack between 40 and 80 million locusts.
But yet they have no king. They have no leader,
Yeah.
right?
No leader.
But I would think like it's just like a chain reaction. Like they all know that they're all trying to search for food, so they're like, oh, so you're leaving? No, I'm gonna leave too.
And
Yeah.
it says a swarm that size can eat 423 million pounds of plants every day.
A disaster.
Yeah, that's disastrous. Yeah. And then a spider.
Whoa. That spider makes his house anywhere, even in the king's palace. Doesn't matter. That's cool. That little spider sneaks in there and makes his house in the king's, or in a poor place or abandoned places. He makes his house anywhere. Not discriminating whether you're rich or poor or
Right.
where you go. They're right there.
We went to National Bridge Caverns, and we were exiting out of a tunnel. You can't see anything through this tunnel, but we took flashlights, and you flash up,
Oh,
and the
no.
ceiling was like covered in spiders. It was
You should've just
insane.
turned that
It
off.
looked like they would all fall, but they were like gripping on to like each other and the wall. And it was creepy.
They're getting ready for the plague.
But I think maybe they have like a reason why, like the palaces have those spiders for like the gnats, they catch the gnats and the flies and all those pesky other insects. So they just probably don't really get rid of them. They just like, yeah, keep them there, they can get rid of the
But you
other
can't get,
pests.
you clean the web, then a couple of weeks later, it's back up there again. It'll rebuild again. It doesn't matter, you go clean it, and it's right back up there. I leave mine hanging on the windows.
The ground spider, when it makes its burrow, but he also has a little door to come in and go out. He opens the door and closes the door to go in and out.
Yeah, like the daddy long legs. Like I'm not really scared of them because I know that like they're so small to bite. So like I'll like grab them and then like I'll let them go outside and then like I'll find sooner or later that they crawl back inside to go to their corner. I'm like, really? Like you want to die?
They don't discourage very easily. All right, number 9. So we've talked about 4 things never satisfied, 4 things too wonderful, 4 things that disquiet, 4 things that are little but wise, 4 things that go well. Number 9.
What 4 things go well? Proverbs 30, 29, and 31. There be 3 things which go well, yea, 4 are comely in going. A lion which is strongest among beasts, and turneth not away for any. A greyhound and he-goat also, and a king, against whom there is no rising up.
What 4 things go well? What do you think he means by that? 4 things that go well, 4 things that are comely in going.
I guess they send strong among all odds of things in the world.
They're like calm-hearted, but they're not gonna let nothing discourage them. Like I'm a rock here, so I'm not gonna let you move.
This lion knows its place, it understands its standing and understands its capability and its power. And
He's king of the jungle. I mean, if you hear a lion roar, you ever heard one? It's just like, it's powerful. You're looking around, where is it? I mean, so are the animals. They know, they have an instinct that this lion, he's on a prowl, or he's around. You better be aware. It's just, he's a strong, powerful, even with his roar.
Yeah, like even in Africa, but they respect the lion's place because they know that he's the king of the jungle.
what about a greyhound here?
Mine says a strutting rooster.
Yeah, but
For what? Well, it says there are 3 things
The
that are
greyhound.
stately in their stride, 4 that move with stately bearing. A lion mighty among beasts who retreats before nothing. A strutting rooster. A he-goat and a king with his army around him. So a greyhound and a strutting rooster, I think. Are those 2 different things?
Like I guess how fast they run, right?
Yeah, a greyhound is the fastest dog. It's the cheetah of the dog world.
As far as the greyhound is concerned, my Bible says, or perhaps a strutting rooster, exact identity unknown. So
Let's see what the
Internet has to say.
well, let's look at the Hebrew word there. Anybody look that up on that one?
which one? Yeah.
Great.
Greyhound.
When I looked up on it, said perhaps a fast dog. So for some reason, the word greyhound tended to them to point out something sleek and fast.
Like cheetah. That Miriam said.
I have a rooster or a zebra.
So the Hebrew word is properly tightly girt, probably a racer or some fleet animal, as being slender in the waist, greyhound.
They are race dogs. One of the best. I don't know if the roosters got that way.
You see a greyhound that is on the prey, they are relentless. And we're seeing this, but it's supposed to be funny, where the greyhounds were going around the track and they were going after the fake rabbit, and a real rabbit went across, and they all turned like Ellen on a dime, and they were going through fences and everything. They were just so
Focused.
yeah.
On the
And I
prowl.
see like all of these things that they have here is that these are things that are very just strong. Like they're dedicated. So it's like the lion is dedicated, the greyhound is dedicated, the he-goat is totally dedicated, you know. The king is dedicated. They're just so like they stand firm, you know, on what they're doing.
Like instinctive, right?
Yeah.
Unpredictable animals because of their eyes. Their eyes are weird.
They are
Oh, yeah, the
goats.
goat.
The goats.
Oh, they have their little pupils.
What's the dealio here with he-goats?
It depends which goat it is. It could be one of those
Ram.
wonderful
Mountain
mountain
goats.
wild goats, you know.
They have horns to defend themselves.
Yeah.
They're gonna get attacked, they're gonna ram it.
I don't think I've ever seen them like really back down. You know,
Yeah.
They go
They
head to
go
head. Even if you're feeding, I had a friend who went to go take care of his other friend's land, and he had goats, and they had a goat with horns, and he's just, you know, feeding the goats, and I'm like, don't ever turn your back on this goat, right? He came back with bruises on his leg because the goat kept ramming
Yeah,
into
they're
him.
disrespecting.
He's protecting his flock.
He don't care who you are, they just will butt you,
Yeah.
yeah.
All of the interactions, the relationships that I have had with goats are very interesting. All right, so when we first moved to that little ranchette out there, there were wild goats that were there for a while. You remember them, Cindy?
Oh, wow.
Wild goats. And then we had
I thought our car was a mountain.
thought the car was a mountain. They could do whatever they wanted to do. And then we had Nathan the goat. And then we had the goat that I don't know if Andrew and Greg and probably Andrew and Greg and Rafe don't remember seeing it, but it was a mountain goat we saw out at Garner State Park. And then we had Cindy's goats last summer that she brought in temporarily. Goats don't care what you think.
Yeah.
They're not.
They're proud.
Yeah, they just do. They don't get discouraged. You kick them down, you push them out, and they're like, whatever. I'll get right back up. I'll do what I want.
That's the best
Have
thing
you
to
ever
say.
had
They
one?
don't get discouraged, and like all those things, the
Persistent.
greyhound, the lion, the goat, the king, they don't just get discouraged.
They come after you.
Have you ever have a YouTube? I like for y'all to look at that video about those goats that are standing almost at a 90-degree angle on a dam.
Yeah.
And they just use the little hooves just to stand on any kind of rock. And they're not feeling like they're in trouble or anything. They just walk along that edge. And I mean, I said, how do they do it? And their big old stomach, you would think that they will fall off. But they jump from there to one other rock and to another rock. It is just amazing about those dogs,
Right.
those goats.
Right.
I love to watch that all the time.
Goat don't care.
And even if one slips off to his gym, the other ones just keep on going.
Right. Right.
Oh,
Don't look
you
down.
missed your step. Well,
And then they jump up and they balance themselves. They can go down at a little pace of faster, and they won't even fall off. They will just hang on to the little edges of with their hooves. I mean,
Right.
it's crazy.
Goat don't care. Don't care.
A goat is also kind of a bully.
Yeah.
I was doing insurance work for a guy up in the Panhandle, and his ranch borders Paladura Canyon. Well, environmentalist people and all brought in what's called ODAD sheep to put out there. And the environment for them was perfect. They multiplied, they grew so that they put a hunting license out for them. And you can get a hunting license out, but nobody can hardly ever find them, even though they're there. Well, this guy I'm doing insurance for was feeding his cattle along the rim of the canyon there. The goats caught on to it, and when they'd hear him honk his horn for his cattle, the goats would all come up there. He says, all these people paying big dollars for license, and I've got them all around me here. Get in there. But when it got low on feed, the goats got the last feed. They would come a bullet, running the cattle off, getting the very last feed.
But they make terrible noises when they're in trouble. I saw one time I was working for the water company, and I was passing by, and I had the windows down, and he was caught on the barbed wire. And I was trying, I got off to let him go, but he started yelling, and I got scared. It's an awful sound that makes, real loud. And I said, well, let the owner take care of it. Come on. They real loud.
He like turn on you.
It's worse than when a baby cries. It's worse than that. Real loud. It's just scary.
Screaming goat. All
I like
right.
that YouTube video when they yell. And I like that YouTube video when they just scream.
Question 10. Let's wrap it up on 4.
How are the 4 horses of Revelation described? Revelation 6:1-8. And I saw the Lamb open one of the seals, and I heard as it was the noise of thunder, one before me saying, Come and see. And I saw on the white horse, and he that sat on him had a bow, and a crown was given unto him, even for the conquering and to conquer. And when he had opened the second seal, I heard the second beast say, Come and see. And there went out another horse that was red, and power was given to him that sat thereon to take peace from the earth, that they should kill one another, and there was given unto him a great sword. And when he had opened the third seal, I heard the third beast say, Come and see. And I beheld, and lo, a black horse, and he that sat on him had a pair of balances in his hand. And I heard a voice in the midst of the 4 beasts saying, A measure of wheat for a penny, and 3 measures of barley for a penny. And see thou not the oil and the wine. And when he had opened the 4th seal, I heard the voice of the fourth beast say, Come and see. And I looked, and behold, a pale horse, and his name that sat on him was Dead. And hell followed with him, and power was given unto him over the 4th part of the earth, to kill with the sword, and with hunger, and with death, and with the beasts of the earth. Here described with lots of detail.
That's a good answer, Maya. Described with lots of detail. First horse was what? White horse. Second horse was red. Third horse was black. And the 4th horse was pale. Four horses with the first 4 seals. 5th seal doesn't have a horse. So on. Four horses. Four different colors. 4 different descriptions of what's going on around these horses. All we know about the horse in verse 2 is it was white, And then we have a description of the rider, right? And then verse 4, all we know about the horse is it's red. And then we have a description about the rider.
Speak peace on the earth.
The fifth one, all we know about the horse is it's black. And then information about the rider. And then verse 8, the only thing we know about the horse is pale. And then information about the rider.
The thing we can notice about that is that each one had a color that represented its job,
Rider.
or its duty, or what it stood for. Their color had a particular sign as to what their horse meant.
All right, so we've gone a little bit past here. 4 was the topic this morning, so we looked at the fourth day of creation, 400 years that Israel was going to be in captivity, and after the fourth generation return home. 4 generations that the sins of the fathers carry on. 4 things never satisfied, 4 things too wonderful, 4 things that disquiet the earth, 4 things that are little but wise, 4 things that go well, and then 4 horses. Next week we're going to do 2 numbers, 5 and 6. Because as I said earlier, the number of times that these numbers are in the scriptures is continually kind of decreasing from 1 to 2 to 3 to 4 to now we're going to do 5 and 6 all in the same study because there's a whole lot less references to 5 and 6. But we jump up again when we get to 7. We'll take a break here and take just a little intermission. Those in the sanctuary here, and for those online, we'll be back in 15 or 20 minutes or so. We thank everybody for participation in this Sabbath school lesson this morning, and we'll see you in just a little bit.
Morning, sir.